I've never seen you so serious, Urbosa.
Oh my. I can't say the same. 10 years ago, you rarely smiled, my little bird.
Urbosa, I feel like you've called me Little Bird before. I was wondering where you got that name from. Huh?
Have you ever wondered why Zelda's nickname is Little Bird? I think there is a strong argument to be made that it's because she shares the blood of Hylia, the kingdom of Hyrule's patron deity. That's because the goddess has numerous intersecting and overlapping tie-ins with birds, both in-universe and in the real-world influences that inspired her character. You might know that birds are the symbol of the Hyrulean royal family, as evidenced by the numerous bird depictions displayed on Hyrulean architecture throughout the history of the Zelda series. The Masterworks book for Breath of the Wild describes the bird statues around Hyrule Castle as masculine, while the ones on the Great Plateau are feminine. Two of these birds frame arguably the most important feature of the plateau, the large statue of the goddess Hylia. This is fitting because the tradition of bird imagery adorning Hylian society can be traced all the way back to the days when Hylia inhabited the land, before the kingdom was even founded. She left her symbol, the goddess crest, throughout the surface that would become the world that was explored by Link in Skyward Sword. The goddess crest is the predecessor to the royal crest and the Hylian crest that would be used after the kingdom was founded, and it is shaped like a soaring bird spreading its wings. The red version of the Hylian crest, which appears on the Hylian shield, according to the Zelda book Hyrule Encyclopedia, is the quote, mark of the goddess Hylia, and also depicts the brilliant red Loftwing once ridden by the hero. And this isn't the only Loftwing design Hylia used, as we see on places like the Sealed Temple, which is confirmed to have been created by the goddess. But why Loftwings? Gaepora, the headmaster of the Skyloft Knight Academy and Zelda's father, tells Link the following. As you know, each of us in Skyloft is but one half of a pair. We are only made whole by our Loftwings, the guardian birds that the goddess bestows upon each of us as a symbol of her divine protection. But does this mean that Hylia's symbol is simply an homage to the Loftwing, and thus all symbols used by the Hylians throughout the series symbolize the mounts of Skyloftian knights? Or does it go deeper than that? The connection between the Kingdom of Hyrule and birds does seem to be much broader the more we look around. For instance, in the development notes from Breath of the Wild's Masterworks for Tanagar Canyon and its Forgotten Temple, the following is revealed. The original concept for the temple was that it had been abandoned for so long that it had faded from people's memories. At the beginning of development, the canyon was so deeply tied to the royal family that it was called the Valley of the Royal Family. This tidbit has many implications. For starters, it's located in the Tabantha frontier, the home of the Rito tribe. Tabantha gets its name from the Japanese name for the Minish Cap's Castor Wilds, which is connected to the Wind Ruins, a place heavily connected to birds. The Minish Cap's Wind Ruins is where Link obtains the Ocarina of Wind, which allows him to fast travel via the bird named Zephyr, whose Japanese name is Rito Rock. Also, the Japanese name for Tanagar Canyon is an anagram of the Japanese word for peacock. Finally, the Wind Ruins contain the fortress where the wind element was once kept, and the Rito have many connections to wind, including Tears of the Kingdom's Sage of Wind. Zelda games take inspiration from a multitude of real-world folklore and mythology. One of these, Shinto, the indigenous spirituality of Japan, reveres birds as messengers of kami or spirits. Sacred gates called tori, whose name literally translates to bird perch, can be found all over Tears of the Kingdom, a game which draws heavily from Buddhism and Shinto. And these gates are often found at important sites that could be considered sacred. In Skyward Sword, when you save your progress at Loftwing-shaped bird statues, you are actually praying to the goddess Hylia in order to do so. As Pippet the Skyloftian Knight says, you should find a bird statue and send your prayers to the goddess to save your progress. This means Loftwings aren't just divine protectors of Hylia's people, they are intermediaries between them and the spiritual world, much like the messenger birds of Shinto. And yet I can't help but wonder if the representations of birds left by Hylia hint at an even closer connection, possibly a morphological one. What if the reason Hylia is so closely connected to birds is because she was herself, in one form or another, actually somewhat bird-like? I know what you might be thinking. If the first Zelda was the reincarnation of Hylia, and all subsequent Zeldas share the blood of the goddess, doesn't that mean Hylia just looks like Zelda? Consider this. When Demise first lays eyes on Zelda in Skyward Sword, he doesn't recognize her. In fact, he mocks her stature in comparison to the Hylia he battled many millennia before, sneering, "How pathetic. This bag of flesh pales in comparison to the magnificence of her previous form." But what was this previous form that he alluded to? Among the sparse representations of Hylia we do have, depending on how literal you choose to interpret them, it's not too much of a stretch to envision her as winged like an angel from Abrahamic religions. First, of course, there are the goddess statues carved in her likeness that suggest this. These statues are confirmed to be of the goddess Hylia. Notice the wings are jointed and feathered, unlike the straight bug or butterfly-like ones of most of the fairies across the series. And then there are the goddess plumes found in Skyward Sword. Plumes are defined as a display of feathers, just like you would see on a bird. And the in-game description for these sacred items is as follows. Rumors say this item was dropped by the goddess in a long-forgotten era. It's a legendary treasure few will ever behold. And finally, there are stone murals of her that, for me, seal the deal that the goddess was in fact feathered. And speaking of divine beings assuming the form of birds in the Zelda series, there is strong evidence suggesting that the otherworldly Oocca, who inhabit the city in the sky above Hyrule and Twilight Princess, evolved into their current form in the distant past. They aren't true birds, but are in fact some sort of grotesque avian-Hylian hybrid. It's not a coincidence that they reside in the heavens close to the gods. As Shad the Oocca scholar tells us in the original Japanese text, the common opinion is that Hyrule was created by the Hylia people, the race closest to the gods. But, truth be told, there's also a theory saying that in ancient times, there was a race even closer to the gods than the Hylia people, and they created it. And they simultaneously, with the birth of the Hylia people, created a new capital, a capital that floated in the heavens. On the cover of one of the books Shad holds is an interesting symbol. It appears to be a version of the Hylian crest, but with the head of an Oocca. Considering that the Hylian crest originated as Hylia's goddess crest, this further connects the Oocca to the gods, and possibly the Loftwings as well. Given the apparent anatomical limitations of the Oocca in their current state, it's extremely difficult to envision them building anything, let alone the kingdom of Hyrule. So it's not too far-fetched to theorize that they evolved into their current form after they created Hyrule. And the fact that these divine beings evolved into birds of all animals is very telling. And yet, it's not the first time this has happened. The Zelda series is no stranger to characters transforming upon being subjected to various forces. Link transforms into a bunny in the dark world of A Link to the Past, and a wolf when he enters the twilight of Twilight Princess. Batrix transforms from a demon to a human in Skyward Sword after Link gives him enough gratitude crystals. And of course, Ganon transforms into various demon forms upon stealing power. While these transformations occur in life, death can also bring about a physical change if that character reincarnates, as is the case with the Lord of the Mountain, which Breath of the Wild tells us is the quote, reincarnation of a sage. This quadruped has many unique features, including a pair of bloopy faces, which in turn strongly resemble barn owls. But this isn't the first time a sage reincarnated in the Zelda series, and reincarnated into an owl nonetheless. Kaepora Gaebora is one of the most famous characters from the entire series, if only because of his exhausting dialogue. As Link's mentor and guide in Ocarina of Time, he epitomizes the trope of owls being wise. We know that Kaepora Gaebora is the reincarnation of an ancient sage because a gossip stone tells us as much. But apparently, according to the Zelda book Hyrule Historia, he is a form of the Sage of Light Rauru, whom Link meets in the Chamber of Sages. So here we have another divine entity assuming the shape of a bird. And interestingly, Rauru might be an ancestor of Princess Zelda. He shares many physical characteristics and a similar name with Zelda's father Gaepora from Skyward Sword. Additionally, Zelda's Zonai ancestor, who was the first king of Hyrule, was also named Rauru and was also the Sage of Light. Since the latter is confirmed to be an ancestor of Zelda, it's plausible that the former is as well. Finally, there are some compelling in-game and real-world thematic bits of evidence to consider which connect Hylia to birds. The Legend of Zelda is a franchise about virtues, specifically the three virtues of courage, wisdom, and power, which each correlate to a piece of the Triforce, and each is also represented by an animal. Those animals are boars for power, dragons for courage, and birds for wisdom. And this fact is confirmed by the Zelda book Breath of the Wild creating a champion. And wisdom, the virtue and Triforce piece associated with birds, just so happens to be intimately linked to Princess Zelda. You could possibly take this idea to a whole other level. The Zelda franchise is full of Buddhist references like lotus flowers, reincarnation, and literal depictions of Buddha himself. In Buddhism, samsara is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and it is depicted on paintings known as the Wheel of Life. In the center of the wheel are those same animals from before. The serpent chases the boar, and the boar chases a bird. It's easy to imagine these three creatures representing the titular characters and their virtues. The serpent or dragon is Link, the boar is Ganon, and Zelda is the bird. And that's all of the evidence of why I believe Zelda's nickname is Little Bird. She shares the blood of the goddess, who has countless connections to birds. Hylia is the heavenly bird, and Zelda is the little one. I truly hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to me. I try to only make theories about things that no one else is talking about, so that when you watch my videos, it really is unique. Thank you.
You asked me why I call you Little Bird.
Huh?
When you were but a small child, my dear friend called you that with the sweetest smile that ever graced our land of Hyrule.
You mean Mother?
It was 10 long years ago. Your mother had just left this world, yet her little bird still spread her wings and became the beacon of light Hyrule needed. Sometimes I forget myself and get lost in the past.